Is a better world possible? The challenges sometimes seem overwhelming. Billions of people have no access to education, health care, clean drinking water, or even basic human rights. Their poverty is compounded by corruption, conflict over resources, economic stagnation, and violence.
Some countries, whole generations of young people are being lost.
So the cycle goes on and on. So one has to break that cycle.
Where are the solutions? And who are the change makers who can create them? In the past few decades, a powerful force has emerged. New leaders finding new ways to tackle the world's biggest problems. Problems that governments and businesses alone have not been able to overcome.
This is a new language, a new way of looking at the world.
Very different structure, different framework, different reference points.
This global revolution is led by social entrepreneurs, innovative people who respond to local problems, engage their communities in solving them, and accelerate change.
What has happened during the last 5 years is breathtaking.
People have the power of transformation.
This series is an opportunity to learn from the most extraordinary social entrepreneurs, people whose visionary ideas and persistence have enabled millions to transform their own lives. These founding members of Ashoka's Global Academy for Social Entrepreneurship have lessons to offer us all about the power of our own potential. They all started small, from humble beginnings. You are invited to share their journeys, learn their insights, and about the tools they use to produce change.
We have a window of opportunity of a couple of years.
It's a chance that we have to think ahead.
The companies that get this are going to have a huge competitive advantage.
Whether you're in business, the media, government, universities, or the social sector, this series will expose you to a new way of thinking and working that will stretch your own beliefs about what's possible and how you can achieve it. Grameen Bank is best known for bringing the power of microfinance to over 4 million poor women in Bangladesh. But it has also created more than 24 other ventures.
Whether non-profit or for-profit, our involvement relates to benefiting to the poor people.
Mohammed Yunus, Grameen Bank's founder, describes why and how Grameen has launched enterprises in areas as diverse as textiles, cell phone technology, and healthcare. He shares the valuable lessons he has learned in finding new ways to give Grameen's members even greater access to opportunity and power.
We need a very different structure, different framework, different reference points. We would be judged by our own achievements.
Dr. Yunus sees a global need for a new kind of capitalism, one that puts people in need first. He demonstrates how economic viability can magnify the impact of social ventures. And he describes the support systems needed to allow this new model of capitalism to reach its vast potential.
One of the things that I draw attention to in connection with poverty, that poor people are victims of the system. And system is composed of institutions, policies, and concepts. So I'm talking about creating institutions which are open and which can reach out to the poor people so that they can do business with those institutions. And Grameen Bank is one example that we tried to build where poor people are welcome. And we said we reverse the basic principle of banking. And conventional banking is based on the principle, the more you have, the more you can get. We reversed that. We said, less you have, higher priority you get. If you have nothing, you get the highest priority. Then we talk about the concepts. Where did we go wrong with the concepts? And the concept, one issue that I raised, that capitalism has been narrowly defined, narrowly interpreted. So the real interesting part of capitalism has been just abandoned or never explored, never exposed. The business, the way it has been interpreted in capitalism, is that business is an entity which is created to make money. And that's the capitalist system. I said that is wrong. Capitalism never said that you have to create an institution to make money only. You can create another kind of an institution which can do good to people. It is interested in recovering its cost so that it can continue and run. But it's not interested in maximization of profit. It can just, it could be just described as a non-loss companies. So that like you already familiar with the non-profit organization. Non-profit organizations are organizations which are basically charity organizations. So that you give away because you are not interested in making profit, but you are not interested in recovering cost either. But the non-loss companies are in very much a business proposition. It runs by itself. It recovers its own money and continues, but works to achieve some social objectives. From the conventional businesses, now there are voices saying that we would like to be more supportive of people and the society, sometimes called socially responsible businesses. These are good initiatives from people, but I'm a little bit skeptical about that, because basic ground on which you work, you can go to a certain extent. If you are bold, you can go a little bit more, but still you are tied to that basic tenet of business, maximization of profit. You may be a business leader, you want to do something, but your investors who are there, they want you to bring them more money. So you're always pulled back. The framework is laid out because that's the conceptual framework. You cannot venture out of it. All the institutions, all the assessment, evaluations, ratings are all done on the basis of this. So I appreciate and admire those who are doing that. But at the same time saying that we need a different kind of framework, reference points, so that we can do the full blast of it. And that's what the social business entrepreneurship is all about, where you are not judged by the existing measures. You create your own measuring scale. To give an example, a conventional bank can lend some money without guarantee, without collateral to few people. This is great, I'll applaud that. But that has not changed the bank. But if you come to Grameen Bank, this is what we all do with millions of people. This is our only business. We can't get away from this. This is what we have committed ourselves into. So that's the distinction I'm making. We need a very different structure, different framework, different reference points. We would be judged by our own achievements. One can start a social business venture from two different sides, or maybe three different sides. You may be already in a non-profit organization, NGO, doing a healthcare program, providing healthcare with donor money. Somebody gave you money. Then you realize that all the time you need the money from somebody to do one more thing. You say, this is very uncertain whether I get the money or not. Why don't I charge a small fee for the service? It's not covering all the cost, but getting some money. So at least to that extent, I don't have to take the money from outside. That will be less. You have the healthcare program. You are all focused on the poor people because that's where your intention is. Now to make money, what you thought, maybe I will expand this business a little bit. While I'm doing the poor, I will also do the rich. So that I make money with the rich and cross-subsidize my work with the poor. And in the end, I recover my costs. So this is one way, just a cross-subsidization. So moving gradually from the non-profit end, step by step, to a level where you are not any longer a non-profit organization. You are recovering your cost, and for the first time you balanced it. So you have entered the business world from the non-profit world. You have entered the non-loss world. To your investors, you are assuring that their money will not disappear. It's not a grant. It's a loan, but maybe a loan with no interest, but not assuring that you make money. You are saying you feel good that we are doing this. That's it. So this is one category where you come in. Another one, one can be a very big business person making lots of money. It's a real aggressive business, just like any classic business could be. But he decided, I made enough money and I continue to run this company, make more money in that, but I want to also run a social business venture. I want to do good through this company because I know the tricks of the business. I don't want any profit to come because I make enough profit here. But this is something that I want to do. So same person could play two roles. It could be just a conventional business person, or it could be a social business person at the same time. Or the third category, neither in the non-profit world nor in the for-profit world, he was a professor, he was a artist, can come in and design something. This is the way I'm going to do it, and I'll make it happen. And you become a very successful social business entrepreneur. As an artist, you never cared for money. You enjoyed doing your work, and still you don't care for money, and you are doing good for people, and you enjoy that. It's possible. When we created companies, they came from many different historical backgrounds. It's not something I planned some 30 years back. I'll have this company, and 2 years later this company. I had absolutely no such plan, no such even imagination that someday it will happen. Because the whole Grameen story is started out with a blank piece of paper or a blank mind. Every time it was one step. And we thought that was the last step. And once we took that step, 2 more steps appeared. We never had any idea whether I was going to have a bank. That was not intention at all, nowhere. All I was doing is demonstrating that it can be done. But I was sucked into the process where led me to say, why don't we have our bank? Because it's not working this way. This is the only solution if you can create our own bank. But each one of those companies came along the way for solving a particular problem. Some of them didn't come at the beginning as a company. It was a project, and then it became larger and larger. Then I saw the difficulty of a bank running completely different thing, like a fisheries project, like an agricultural project, which by itself is a large entity. So I decided, why don't we give them a shape of a company? So what kind of company? Well, it's best thing to describe as a non-profit company, is a non-stock non-profit company. But when the opportunity for telephone came, obviously we need investors, and if we say it's a non-profit company, nobody will be around. So we said it's a for-profit company, it's a big money will be waiting for you. And we got the partners and we started. So wherever it was applicable in a certain way, we took that path. If it's a non-profit, we did the non-profit. If we thought this is the way we can do it for profit, we did the for-profit. But we made it very clear, wherever we are involved, whether non-profit or for-profit, our involvement relates to benefiting to the poor people, either directly by the service, fisheries, agriculture, and so on, or if it's a mobile phone, 2 ways. We bring mobile phone to you, you make money, and also you own the company, a piece of the company that we are holding for you. So this is how we went ahead, and everything comes with this, see the new idea, what will be the best format for that. Is it non-profit or a for-profit? Then we went ahead. Grameen's story began with agriculture. I got involved in production of rice because I thought producing rice is a solution to overcome famine, hunger. So it started with agriculture and it started with irrigation. And we saw the opportunity of all the non-functioning deep tube wells lying all over the country. So we thought, why don't we just take it from the government and irrigate the land and let the people have it? So in that effort, we got involved with the large operation of deep tube wells, irrigations, farming equipment, and so on. We called it agricultural project. And when we bought more of those deep tube wells in the northern part of Bangladesh, it became a huge operation by itself. So at one point we decided that maybe it will be better served if we have a separate structure as a company for them. So we converted them into a non-profit company called Grameen Agriculture Foundation. Then we got involved with the fisheries program. This was an accident. I had no idea that we will ever get involved with fisheries. One day I got a call from the Secretary of Fisheries, from the Ministry of Fisheries. He wanted to talk to me about this project that government had. So he said, well, this project is just in a mess. There's a lot of corruption, nothing being done. The government is spending a lot of money, a lot of donor money is involved in that. And it's all squandered. There were about 800 huge big ponds lying around in the one part of Bangladesh. These were excavated some centuries back by some king who raised a lot of cattle. The cattle needed water, so they had dug in lots of these ponds. So he gave a big presentation of the whole situation and urged me to take it. So I discussed with my colleagues, gave the whole details, and they all agreed that we should take it over. So now that we took it over, we had to grow fish in this. So we became very interested in fish culture. And that became our big fisheries project. And we loved it. It's a beautiful place, lots of fish and so on. And at one point it became so big, we thought maybe we should separate it out from the bank, so the management of fisheries and the management of bank doesn't come to the same people. And we separate it out by creating the Fisheries Foundation. So it still is working in the same way, in the same territory, and producing about 1,000 tons of fish each year. Many families in Bangladesh inherited a very special skill of making fabrics, handloom-operated fabrics. This is something coming down the families over centuries. And in the history, we read about the muslin, which became very famous in the European courts. Muslin is so fine fabric produced in India, because Bangladesh at that time was India, part of India. So this fabric, which came from India, actually was produced in Bangladesh. And these are the handloom weavers which still survive, tradition survives. But they had to go through a lot of struggles to keep it surviving. And still there's 1 million families in Bangladesh who make fabrics. But somehow the weavers, all the things that they're producing, handloom product, they are not getting the market and the price, and there's a competition coming from the cheap fabrics coming from outside, not fabric, but clothing, used second-hand clothes, dumped in markets like Bangladesh. And that is so cheap that handloom fabrics cannot compete with them. And many of these weavers are also Grameen Bank borrowers. That became our headache. When a lean season comes, they find it extremely difficult to pay back. So finally we thought, if we cannot promote it within the country, can we promote it outside? That idea caught on. We thought maybe this is a marketing thing, that we can take this fabric, take it to Europe, take it to the USA, and say this is a handloom product. So we thought of a name so that people immediately recognize what this is. So we called it Grameen Check, because basic fabric that is produced is in checks. And we did good success in the first couple of years. But then something happened in the international market, it went down again. But what we achieved in the meantime, while we are trying to promote it internationally, to our surprise, it excited Bangladeshi young people. They thought now this is a matter of pride to wear outfit made of Grameen check. So it became a big domestic market sale in that. And still this is so. Even people who are giving gifts to their friends, they ask for Grameen check outfits for them, for their children and so on, as a matter of pride that this is made by the handloom weavers in Bangladesh, and they want to show respect to it. When we are talking about poverty, we always talk about the reasons, the causes of poverty and how to address that. And we saw that certain interventions are very basic, very important. One is credit, which I've been promoting as a human right. It's so basic, so important to life at the very bottom, that it should be treated as a human right. And the next important thing I felt that is information technology. This is the age where world is changing, human society is changing because of the explosion that is coming in the information technology innovations. So I thought if we can connect information technology with the poor people, they can change their own life much faster than anybody ever thought of. How to bring these two connections together. How to make it happen, that information technology come to the poor people. One chance we got, without ever thinking this is what we would do, one chance we got was mobile phone, and we grabbed it. Government was inviting applications to give license for mobile telephone company. We applied, and after long procedural battle, finally we got a license, and we created Grameen Phone. The idea is to bring mobile phone in the rural areas of Bangladesh and then give mobile phone in the hands of the poor women with the financing from Grameen Bank so that she can start selling the service of the telephone and become the telephone lady of the village. When we were negotiating for Grameen Phone to find partners, we tried out many different companies, and many different companies tried us. And we finally found Telenor of Norway. We liked them in principle because this was a government-owned company. So at least we thought if it's a government-owned company, this will not be a greedy company taking just to squeeze everybody, make money and get out. But more than that, the chief of Telenor, the president of Telenor, Tormod Hermansen, he is a wonderful person. He immediately understood what Grameen Bank is trying to do, and they said, we will give you full support. So if a social business entrepreneur is looking for a business partner from the old world, I would say it would be good to be very cautious. Who do you partner with? Because in the beginning, you may not know all the details of the business that is coming up, but if something comes up, some crisis comes, some success comes, you may not have the same feeling both ways. So you be prepared for that as you enter into negotiations. In order to create Grameen Phone, we are thinking how the investment from the Grameen side will be put into it. Should it be Grameen Bank investing in it? So in the worst case scenario, I thought this would not be a good idea to expose Grameen Bank into such thing. So another alternative I thought of is, why don't I create a separate company? And they become the part owner of the Grameen Phone. So we created that company. That's a non-profit company. This is kind of a proxy company owning 35% of the Grameen Phone's share. So this is the relationship between Grameen Phone and Telecom. And Telecom, we see this as a company representing the interest of the Grameen borrowers. Someday these shares will be sold to Grameen borrowers so that they become the owners of the Grameen Phone. Grameen Phone became a very successful company. This is the largest mobile telephone company in the country with 2.5 million subscribers. And then it has the other piece. It brought the telephone in the hands of the poor women in the villages to make money. And it's a roaring business. If you have one telephone, if you are a Grameen Bank borrower, you are sure out of poverty in a couple of years. Nobody can push you down. And then it changed the whole attitude of people. People having telephones, getting connected the rest of the world, and the poor woman holding that telephone. She is a different person altogether. She can be in touch with anybody once she wants to. We have been hearing about the outsourcing businesses in India and Bangalore and all this. We said Bangladesh is no different than India, Dhaka is no different than Bangalore. Why can't we get in there and start learning the process so that this becomes an exciting business by itself and also expose us into the potential of information technology. We don't want to be left out, because unless we are inside of information technology, we will never know what the potential is so far as the poor people is concerned. So we created one company after another on the information technology side, information highway, IT park. Wanted to put all the people together so that anybody wants to start an IT company can just come in and plug in and connect it with, because getting connectivity in Bangladesh is a very time-consuming process. And we created a Grameen software hoping that it will be a big source of outsourcing. Employ the young people from Bangladesh who would be the programmers and do the programs for USA and the European market. So we started a training program and created a company and franchising the company, Grameen Star Education. Since Grameen children are coming out of high schools, going into colleges, soon they will be looking for jobs, and they can come to these IT education centers, Grameen Star Education. And Grameen Bank can pay the fee as a loan so that they can get the training and be in the crowd of information technology and move up. So that became a big business by itself, but it went down quickly and almost came to basic minimum right now. It didn't do well because the international business went down, so it went down along with it. So hopefully if the business picks up again, this will pick up, but the company exists without making any money right now. As a group, IT companies, information technology related companies didn't work. Many people had to leave the company because the company can't afford to pay them. Grameen Communication, although it's an IT company, is one successful IT company. They want to bring internet in the villages, still trying it out because internet infrastructure is very poor, so they have not had success on that. Their success came from supporting Grameen Bank. They have the full responsibility of computerization of the entire Grameen Bank system. They develop the software, they develop the training, they operate the computers, and everything is outsourced to them. And they make good money. We created Grameen Fund, which is a social venture capital, because we had some donor money for experimentation, for innovations, and so on. At one point, we thought instead of trying to do it within the bank framework, why don't we separate it out, create a fund, a venture fund, and they can invest in all the companies that we have in mind and have partners together. So we created Grameen Fund with that money. And they invested in Grameen software, they invested in Grameen IT Park. All the companies that we created, first investment came from the venture capital. And then investment came from the private capital, so that it's a joint venture company between the private entrepreneurs in the business world and then social venture from the Grameen Fund. And hoping that if some of the Grameen borrowers now become very successful, want to go into bigger businesses, Grameen Fund can provide the venture capital for them and move it from there. Another company which has been very successful, I must say, this is Grameen Trust. Grameen Trust is a non-profit. We wanted to handle the problem of dealing with the visitors who are coming to look at us, understand training and all that. So we created this company so that all the visitors can go to them, and they provide all the facilities, the materials and so on, and they do it in a kind of a business way. Grameen Dialogue is a workshop for new people to understand Grameen Bank. And this is a technical know-how package they provide, and they make a little earning on the side by charging you a fee if you are getting the materials. They charge you for the materials. And if they want someone from Grameen Bank to come and look at your program and give their assessment, they charge a fee and organize this whole thing. And if you want to start a Grameen program in your country, you want to have a build, operate and transfer, they'll take the contract and find the people, do the negotiations, all those things. And today programs are developed with Grameen staff on a build, operate and transfer system already done in Kosovo. It's a very beautiful program running in Turkey. It's running now in Zambia. So looking at the number of successful replicators of Grameen Bank around the world, you must applaud Grameen Trust for the wonderful work they have done. Another one is the Grameen Energy or Grameen Shakti, which started out to bring solar energy in the country, because Bangladesh is a country where 70% of the people do not have access to electricity. Grameen Energy brought the solar panel and started selling solar panels in the villages. People loved it. They packaged it in a way it's easy for them to pay back installment payment over a period of 3 years or so. It's your own system. You learn it very quickly. They train you how to maintain that system. It goes on for years. So that has picked up. Each month today, they sell over 1,200 solar systems in the villages of Bangladesh, and it keeps growing every month as we move on. Some of these successful companies sooner or later will go public, and our intention is when they go public, we'll bring some of the shares to the Grameen borrowers to buy, and gradually they will have a portfolio of these shares. But realizing that it may not be convenient for them to look after so many diverse set of companies, it will be a good idea to have one-stop shop for them. So we created a Grameen Mutual Fund, which would be listed in the Dhaka Stock Exchange this month. One company that we are hoping that will go into offering public shares would be Grameen CyberNet, which has been a very successful company. This is an internet service provider company. They have been making profit in the third or fourth year of their operation, and ever since they have been making profit. So they have come to a stage where they want to go public and issue the share. The next company that we see would be Grameen Phone, being a successful company. Would like to be in the stock market and issue the shares. Delay is coming because one of the idea is in the Grameen Phone that they will float the shares in 3 stock markets simultaneously. One is Dhaka stock markets, another is New York stock markets, another is Oslo stock market. So they are trying to see what will be a good time to enter the market with a good reaction for the market. But whenever it happens, the idea for us is to gradually bring the shares to the Grameen borrowers from Grameen side through the mutual fund that we have already created. When we start a company as a non-profit and put some project inside that company which we try to run as a business, that means we are not sure about its business viability yet. So it needs to be funded, it needs to be supported from the sources of funds the non-profit can accumulate. Once we see that it can now run its own, it's a non-loss company, then we can create a company, a business company, rather than a company within the non-profit format. So these are the experimental stages of things, like in the Grameen Kalyan. Grameen Kalyan or Grameen Well-being was created to address many of the issues which we cannot handle through Grameen Bank. There we have located our health program, trying to build a health insurance program and making it self-reliant. There are about 20 such health centers running within Bangladesh. Those healthcare programs are open for both Grameen borrowers and non-Grameen people in the village. The distinction is Grameen borrowers pay less as insurance premium than the non-Grameen people. Non-Grameen people pays double the amount that Grameen people pay. And we are hoping that the income generated by this will be able to cover all the cost of the infrastructure that we have built in. And we started, it was less than 50% recovery of the cost. Now we have come near 90% of the recovery of that cost. So we are waiting a little more step to take so that we can recover the whole cost. And then you can open it up for replication, putting it into a business format. One of our next venture that we see now would be a nationwide healthcare program. It's coming up now. And experience from this Grameen Health Kullan program would be enormously helpful for us. What else we needed to add to it to make it more interesting to the people. Social businesses are focused on people's interest. That's by definition. That is something that is good to have. But if they are not business-wise successful, then what's the good of their good intentions? I could run a pharmaceutical company as a charity proposition. I give in a subsidized medicine to people, and at the end I make a big loss. Having social ventures on a business platform is a much stronger proposition than having social ventures as a charity proposition. Because charity money is a limited money. Business money is unlimited money. Because the more successful you are, more investors will come in, more credit facilities you will get. Because your business is successful, we would like to be supportive of you. And you can hit the sky. So that is the exciting thing about being a social business entrepreneur. A social business entrepreneur can take its business, it can start small. If it's successful, then two things happen. You can expand your business because more investors will be supporting you because you're successful, you're doing the job, you're reaching the objectives. And then other people can imitate you, build the same system and be a replicator. Or you can have a franchise business, franchise social businesses all over. Because they say, okay, we can do that in our corner of the world too. Why don't we do it? We have the same problem. We have the same drinking water problem. We have the same healthcare problem. I would like to do it in my country, in my corner of my city. I'm in a slum area. I would like to run a healthcare kiosk designed by you, and I'm your franchisee. So it can spread all over the world. So that's a business social venture is all about. Since capitalism is narrowly interpreted, socially conscious people don't want to get involved in business because that's uninteresting for them. That's not what we want. We don't want to make money. We want to do something else. So they are outside the business purview. I'm saying if you open it up, a lot of people will gradually come in, particularly young people who are looking for things to do in the world, contribute in the world, and solve problems in the world. They will dream of becoming a social business entrepreneurs, and the facilities has to be created so that they become social business entrepreneur. And I'm talking about even creating departments. There are business schools producing MBAs. There will be a social business program in the business school which will be creating social MBAs. And then you need another institution to make it happen, like you have the stock markets. And the existing stock market, people go there to make more money, as simple as that. You don't go there for charity. So if I want to do good to people in a business way, I have nowhere to go. So I said, why don't we create a completely separate stock exchange where all the companies which are doing good to people, the social business enterprises, will be listed. It could be women's empowerment, it could be street children, it could be drinking water, it could be arsenic problem in some place, it could be pollution problem in another place, it could be healthcare program in some place, it could be health insurance for poor people, whatever. There's 101 and 1001 ideas that you can bring and run those things in a business way, provided the investors who would like, I cannot run a company like that, but I would like to invest in one. I have the money and I can spend it. If we have to run a social business enterprise right now, we run into a lot of problems because we have not set up supportive institutions alongside. So we would be depending a lot more on the old institutions, and they will be at each stage questioning our norms, or they will not understand our performance stakes and so on. If we are not making profit, why should I come and support you? Why should I lend money to you? You're not making any profit. How are you going to pay us back? But doesn't mean that you have to be out of the market completely. It means that you are the first one to venture into new territory, and you lead the way, and others will follow you and create institutions. This is how the pioneers always did. Be the first one, stick the neck out, and make it happen. Luckily, already, if you look around the world, there are many, many, more than we can think, are social business entrepreneurs. So there'll be initial problems, but if it sticks, if it grows, you can create your own world. Once you build it in the concept, you redefine the concept, then it becomes much more easy to address the whole global situation of the problems of creating more poor people through globalization. We are worried about globalization because globalization means freedom for everybody. When you talk about freedom for everybody in business, it's the freedom of the rich, it's the freedom of the big, it's the freedom of the richest country, it's the freedom of the richest company, which means that the poor country and the poor companies will have no chance. If you have opened up the highway of globalization, where the big cars and the big trucks can take over the highway, no room for a Bangladeshi rickshaw or our bullock cart on that road, then we are gone, we are finished. So there will be traffic rules so that our rickshaw can go on the street, maybe slow, maybe rickety, but it moves. It has room, it has full guarantee of safety and all that. That's globalization, proper globalization, not kind of knocking out globalization. And this would be easier, much easier, if we allow the social business entrepreneur to join in the traffic, because they will ensure that traffic is right, because their interest is people, and they run business. Their business are as good as those big companies' business, so you can't easily knock them off. So this is where all the bad elements of globalization, all terrible aspects of globalization can be addressed if we allow these things to happen.
Mohammed Yunus is the founder of Grameen Bank. Grameen loans money for self-employment to over 4 million poor women in Bangladesh.
You cannot get a dollar without a dollar in your hand. In the poor people, nobody gives the first dollar to catch the next dollar.
Dr. Yunus designed Grameen to serve people who have no collateral. 5 borrowers form a group and guarantee each other's loans. The repayment rate is greater than 98%. More than half of Grameen's members have moved their families out of poverty.
We have demonstrated beyond anybody's doubt that it works and is sustainable, and it can work in all kinds of cultural and economic situations.
Grameen Bank has become a model for hundreds of microfinance programs around the world, serving tens of millions of the world's poorest citizens. In this program, Dr. Yunus shares the experience and insights gained in his struggle to build the world's leading poor people's bank.
I toyed around several alternatives. Finally, I decided maybe I should link them with the local bank. Bank is the one who should be lending money. This is their business. This is their job. So with enthusiasm, I go to the branch manager or the bank manager who is located in the campus, propose to him that he lend money to the poor people in the village. He fell from the sky. He couldn't believe I even said that. He said, no, it can't be done. It can't be done. I said, why not? Because, he said, poor people are not creditworthy. What does creditworthy mean? Creditworthy means he will not be able to pay back. I said, how do you know? Did you lend them at all? He said, no, I never lent them. How do you know? I said, everybody knows that. Because they are poor, no matter how much money you give, they will eat and the money will be over. They can't pay you back. So I went to higher officials in the city, downtown. I talked to them. They said the same thing. So every time I go and see somebody, they tell me the same thing. And it went on for months. I couldn't find the door to open. Then I learned something from them and I used it. I said, why don't you accept me as a guarantor? I become your guarantor. I sign all your documents. Risk is on me, not on you. You give the money. I thought it's such a straightforward proposal, they will immediately go for it. They didn't. In all, there were more than 6 months. Finally, I was accepted as a guarantor. And it worked. I was very excited that it worked. But the bank manager doesn't change his mind. He said it may work in one village, but if you do it in 2 villages, it will never work. I said, okay, let me do it in 2 villages. So I did it in 2 villages, it worked. He said, well, 1 village and 2 villages are the same thing. Maybe you should do it in 5 villages. So I did it in 5 villages. It worked. But he doesn't change his mind. After I have done this several rounds, and I realized that if I do the whole world, he's not going to change his mind. Maybe I should forget about him. So I thought maybe I should have a separate bank doing exactly what I'm doing. And that idea started haunting me. That why don't I have a bank for the poor people?
Mohammed Yunus created Grameen Bank, a bank tailored for poor people in response to crushing poverty in his newly created country of Bangladesh.
Poverty is not caused by the poor people. Poverty is caused by the system we built. Poverty is caused by the policies that we pursue.
Grameen Bank has made a significant contribution to reducing poverty in Bangladesh. Since Grameen's creation in the 1970s, life expectancy has risen more than 20 years. The fertility rate has been cut in half. It is estimated that each year, 200,000 Grameen members and their families escape poverty.
The question is, where do we end up? 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now? We did something wrong and the poverty is created. So let's do something right so that poverty disappears.
Dr. Yunus traces the growth of microfinance into a worldwide movement. He shares his vision for using it to meet the Millennium Development Goals and to create a poverty-free world. He describes what it will take from all of us to enable microfinance to reach its global potential.
To me, poor people are like a bonsai. Like the bonsai tree, little tree. You pick the seed of the tallest tree in the forest and then take the best seed out of that and plant it in a flower pot. You got a tiny little tree and call it a bonsai. Nothing wrong with the seed. We got the best seed possible. Nothing wrong with the tree because we picked the tallest tree in the forest. But actually it grows this far. Why? Because we put them into a flower pot, the base. Society is the base. And society is so stingy, it doesn't give them the poor people space to grow. So I said, change the base. If you change the base, anybody will be as tall as anybody else. My belief is poverty is not caused by the poor people. Poverty is caused by the system we built. Poverty is caused by the policies that we pursue. So if these are my conclusion, I have to prove that this is true. So I built Grameen Bank as an institution, a bank, but a different kind of bank. You say, there are banks, why did you create another one? I said, this kind of bank doesn't exist. That bank created poverty. These banks get them out of poverty. We assume that some people will always remain poor. I'm always asked in Bangladesh, you talk about having a poverty-free world, are you crazy? Even the richest country in the world, United States, they have poor people there. I said, look, no matter how rich you get in the present system, you'll have poor people. So I'm trying to change that system. And that system, there will be no poor people because people are as capable as anybody else.
Ashoka, Innovators for the Public, is a global organization that searches out and supports social entrepreneurs, men and women who use entrepreneurial vision and skills to attack and solve social problems.
We're only talking about people who cannot come to rest until their vision has become the new pattern society-wide.
Ashoka is a community of over 1,500 social entrepreneurs, plus staff members, partners, and volunteers in over 50 countries who work together to create widespread, long-lasting change. Bill Drayton is its founder.
You got to have a vision that's going to change the field. You've got to be equally concerned with the how-tos. How do you get from here to there?
In this program, Bill Drayton describes how social entrepreneurs think and act, how the burgeoning field of social entrepreneurship is making a profound impact on millions of lives, and how everyone can contribute to its growth.
The entrepreneur and the idea are so closely tied together that the life cycle of an idea and the entrepreneur is very hard to separate. Now, of course, an entrepreneur can live beyond the launch of an idea. Similarly, the idea can live long after the entrepreneur. Jean Monnet, I think, was the second most brilliant person of the last century. He was responsible for the unification of Europe. His basic dynamic in Europe, idea, institution, stronger idea, next institution, more momentum and credibility for the idea. He died in 1979. That dynamic is still going on. And that's his core genius, in my mind, is setting that dynamic in place. So the person and the idea are married, but especially once you get beyond this stage of defining and figuring out how to make it work at scale, then they can have independent lives. One of the Ashoka Fellows in Brazil saw that half the people in a relatively rich state, Rio Grande do Sul, had no electricity in the rural areas. He wanted to change that. So he developed a new approach to rural electrification that cut the cost 70 to 90%, And then he went to work to change it. He had to talk to the engineering firms and get financing structured and so on. That's changed the lives of way over 1 million people and spreading. He's now focusing on how do you get solar energy into the hands of people who are not wealthy, and there are hundreds of millions of people across the world who can benefit from that. J.B. Schramm, right here in Washington, was one of the first U.S. Ashoka Fellows. He has a very simple idea, but one that will have a big impact. He went to college. Most of his classmates didn't. That bothered him because he knew that they were just as smart, and he thought this was wrong and a big waste. He had parents who went to college. They didn't. This is not what should make the difference. Classic for an entrepreneur, he kept that idea in his mind's eye. He kept thinking about it, looking at it, feeling his way to an answer. He had to find an answer that would be low cost and simple and a big win for all the actors. Classic entrepreneur's criteria. He set up something called College Summit. The way it works, he takes a peer group of high school students from families that do not have college backgrounds, and they spend 4 or 5 days at a college summit on a nearby campus. College is demystified. They're challenged from the first moment to think about their lives, to articulate the strengths of what they've done, to write the essays for getting into college. They're talking with people who are role models. He then works with the homeroom teachers. Now, this works. 80% of the kids go, 80% graduate. Now, this is a very simple idea, but it has to be implemented. And he's now at the stage of moving it out across the country. That's a social entrepreneur at work.
Oded Grajev evolved from young toy manufacturer to Brazil's leading advocate for corporate social responsibility.
The business sector is the most powerful sector in society. Of the 100 greatest economies in the world, 51 are businesses.
He founded the Abrinque Foundation, which made great inroads against the practice of child labor, and Instituto Ethos for Business Social Responsibility, an organization that has engaged more than 1,000 companies, representing 1/3 of Brazil's gross domestic product, to adopt socially responsible practices.
Social responsibility is nothing more and nothing less than doing the right things. And when you do the right things, the personal advantages are enormous. And on the other hand, we show the risks of not having socially responsible management.
Oded Grajev has made a career of bridging divides between conservative and progressive, labor and business, public and private. In this program, he shares his methods of enlisting everyone in the effort to build a sustainable society.
Each one of us, as a consumer, can change the world because it is consumers who support businesses. And it is businesses that have great power and great responsibility for the world we have today and for the world we'll have tomorrow. When consumers decide to buy products and services only from businesses that are socially responsible, we can change the world. There are many cases that show that when consumers decide to boycott a company because the company uses child labor, because it harms the environment, because it is involved in corruption, these consumers can change the companies. Here in Brazil, we set up a program called the Child Friendly Business Program. These are companies that don't use child labor, including through their chain of production. We had a great campaign for consumers, telling consumers, when buying products and services, buy them from companies that treat children well, buy from child-friendly businesses. Thousands of businesses became engaged in the child-friendly business program using the child-friendly business seal because they felt a favorable consumer reaction to these businesses. And that was, for instance, one of the reasons that made child labor in Brazil go down around 40% in the last few years, because businesses began to be concerned with these issues. Here in Brazil, we are now developing tools for consumers to perceive which are the most socially responsible businesses. Because research indicates that approximately 80% of consumers want to favor socially responsible companies, but only 15% of consumers act upon it. And what the research shows is that consumers want to have tools. They want something that will allow them, when buying products and services, to choose between socially responsible companies and companies that are not socially responsible. So, in order for their will to be consistent with their actions, we will launch a series of information tools for consumers to have more information at hand to choose companies according to their degree of social responsibility.